All right, let's dive right in. We're about to take a whirlwind tour through 5,000 years of history. We're going to see how a long line of incredible empires forged the Middle East we know today, from the world's very first cities to the glittering skyscrapers that now touch the clouds.
So this is the big question we're tackling, right? How did this incredibly deep, complex story, this saga of rising and falling powers, create the region we see on the news every day, with all of its modern challenges and its amazing triumphs? Okay, so first up, the cradle of civilization. We have to start here in the Fertile Crescent, because this is literally where it all began. So where do you even start? Well, you have to start in Mesopotamia with the Sumerians. These guys were the trailblazers. They basically invented the idea of a city. Pretty soon after, you see Egypt unifying into a single powerful state along the Nile. Back in Mesopotamia, it becomes this constant churn of power. You've got the Akkadians, then the Babylonians, the Assyrians, and at the same time, out on the coast, you have the Phoenicians, these incredible sailors connecting the entire ancient world with trade. And here's the thing that's just mind-blowing. The stuff they came up with wasn't just for them. I mean, we're talking about the first cities, the first writing, complex legal codes, even the alphabet. It's like they wrote the original operating system for human civilization. A lot of what we do today still runs on that ancient code.
Next up, the clash of empires. Okay, so things are about to get a whole lot bigger. We're moving from a world of competing cities to a whole new age of massive, sprawling empires that want to rule it all.
You know, you can really think of this period as an imperial relay race. First, you've got the Persians, who build this absolutely gigantic empire. Then, they pass the baton to Alexander the Great, who comes storming in from the west. After him, here come the Romans, methodical and relentless, just swallowing up territory until they're the new superpower. And then, even they shift their focus, moving their capital east to the new city of Constantinople.
And you have to understand what a total game changer this was. Before, it was a patchwork of little kingdoms. Now, for the very first time, you have one single system. One set of rules, one trade network, connecting huge different parts of the world. Europe, Africa, Asia, and the Middle East was right at the heart of it all.
So the Romans leave this huge footprint, right? Roads, laws, peace, and it's that very stability that helps a new religion, Christianity, spread like wildfire. But here's the catch. They get locked into this epic, centuries-long struggle with their great rival, the revived Persian Empire, and this fight just grinds both of them down. They completely exhaust each other, creating this massive power vacuum just waiting to be filled.
So, Section 3, the Islamic Golden Age. Who's going to fill that vacuum? Well, something entirely new is about to explode out of the Arabian Peninsula, and it's going to change the world forever.
And when I say it was fast, I mean unbelievably fast. In just a few decades after the Prophet Muhammad's death, his successors, the caliphs, just sweep across the map. They completely topple the old Persian Empire and take huge chunks of land from the Byzantines. I mean, they forge a new global power in the blink of an eye.
So, what exactly is a caliphate? Well, think of it this way. The caliph wasn't just a king or an emperor. He was seen as both the political leader of the empire and the spiritual leader of the entire Muslim community. It was a totally unique kind of power. And this leads to something incredible, the Golden Age in Baghdad. Under the Abbasids, the capital becomes the intellectual center of the planet. You have this place called the House of Wisdom, where scholars are translating all the old Greek texts, but they're not just saving them, they're building on them. We're talking huge breakthroughs in math, medicine, astronomy. This is where algebra was developed. A lot of this knowledge would eventually help kickstart the Renaissance in Europe.
But you know how these stories go. This golden age couldn't last forever. As the caliphate started to fracture from within, something truly terrifying was building up way out on the eastern steppes. 1258. Just remember that year, because that's when the Mongols arrived. They sacked Baghdad, burned the House of Wisdom, and brought the Abbasid Caliphate to a brutal, bloody end. It was an absolute catastrophe, the end of an era, just like that.
Moving on to Section 4, the Ottoman centuries. Yet, out of all that destruction, a new power begins to rise from the ashes in Anatolia. And this one would become the region's last great multi-ethnic empire, the Ottomans.
So the Ottomans started out as this small Turkish state, but they had huge ambitions. And the moment everyone knew they were the real deal, 1453. That's when they conquered the legendary, unbeatable city of Constantinople. After that, they just exploded, creating a massive empire that stretched all the way from the gates of Vienna down to the Persian Gulf.
Now, this is really important. As the Ottomans are growing, another big power rises next door in Persia, the Safavid Empire. And this sets up the major rivalry of the age, the Sunni Ottomans versus the Shia Safavids. This wasn't just a political fight, it was a deep religious divide. And that rivalry really solidified the sectarian identities in a way that, honestly, you can still see playing out in the region today.
But again, empires don't last forever. After centuries on top, the Ottoman Empire started to fall behind. Europe was industrializing, getting more powerful, while the Ottomans were dealing with internal stagnation. It was this long, slow decline, and they got this pretty unflattering nickname, the Sick Man of Europe.
And that brings us to our final section, forging the modern Middle East. That long decline finally hits a breaking point with World War I. This is the conflict that will blow the old imperial world apart and, for better or for worse, create the blueprint for the Middle East we know.
So what happened? Well, behind closed doors, Britain and France basically took a map of the Ottoman lands and carved it up for themselves. This was the infamous Sykes-Picot Agreement. They just drew straight lines, completely ignoring who actually lived there. Different tribes, ethnic groups, religious sects, and in doing so, they planted the seeds for a century of conflict.
And if that wasn't messy enough, the British started making promises they couldn't possibly keep. On one hand, they told the Arabs, hey, help us fight the Ottomans, and we'll give you a big independent kingdom. But on the other hand, they promised to support a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. You can't do both. These promises were on a collision course from day one.
The century that followed was just a whirlwind of change. The old Ottoman Empire is gone, replaced by the modern Republic of Turkey. The State of Israel is born, kicking off decades of war. Then you have the Iranian Revolution, which created a totally new kind of state. And much more recently, the Arab Spring saw uprisings topple dictators across the region. Just non-stop transformation.
So what's the bottom line here? It's that you simply can't understand the Middle East today without knowing this history. Those artificial borders drawn by colonials, they're still fueling conflicts. Those old rivalries between empires, they've just morphed into rivalries between modern countries. Everything we see today is built on the foundations and sometimes the ruins of these past empires.
Which brings us right back to the present and to the future. For 5,000 years, this region has been a stage for rising and falling powers. It is constantly being reshaped. So as we watch new players emerge and old alliances shift and crumble, you have to ask yourself, who's holding the pen now? Who is going to write the next chapter for this ancient, vital part of the world?